Well, what I noticed, I mean, in growing up in Watts, we went through the US organization, the Black Panthers, and all of those organizations were kind of influential in my upbringing, my consciousness. But one thing about the movie industry, you think about it, the stars are very liberal minded. And that was a comfort zone for me because once I got on the set, I really didn't see any discrimination from the stars. The stunt people were different because we were coming into an industry where they had paint downs.
Hmm.
They would take white stuntmen and paint them black, and they would
Oh,
double actors. And the one actor that stopped it was Bill Cosby. He was doing a series called I Spy, and they kept painting down stuntmen, and he said no more. And and
oh, good.
the
Wow,
yes,
I didn't know that. Wow.
yeah, he was the first one, and the stunt coordinator said, "I can't find any black stuntmen." And Bill said, "Well, if you can't find any, we're going to replace you." So he came up with one, and his name was Cal Brown, and he was one of the earlier stuntmen. But a lot of time people don't know, but Sidney Poitier had a stunt double way back in the day. His name was Ivan Dixon. You probably know that name.
Hogan's Heroes.
Hogan's hero. Ivan Dixon became a director.
Huh.
He was the actor on Broadway, but he started off as Sidney Poitier's double. So he's technically one of the first stuntmen in our business. But getting back to your question, yeah, the comfort zone was there for me every time I stepped on the set. But the other thing was the stunt men were very racist. They
Hmm.
didn't want they didn't want us coming in the business because it took work from them. And the same with women. They had guys doubling girls or women, and they had a
What?
hard time. Yes, they had a hard time as well. The women coming in the business. So the women and the African American stuntmen, we're coming in about the same time, and we both experienced a lot of the problems with them not showing us how to do things and really not being welcoming when you got to the set, you know. But me being a gymnast, I was able to overcome a lot of those things because of my ability.
When did and how did you come to be on Star Wars?
Okay. I was working on Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Dublin
One
Park.
of my favorite movies. Tell me who you're playing on there. Sorry about that. And I have to apologize, folks. This man has an incredibly broad repertoire. I mean, talking with you, sir, is like eating a fantastic 7-course meal. I just have to say, it really is. It's something else.
Well, I got a story you'll probably appreciate. I was doubling Forrest Whitaker, and
Ah,
and that was one of his first films. And he saw me on the set, and he was one. I had a dressing room, so he figured I was somebody important on the set. And he came over to talk to me, and he said, "Hey, brother, can I talk to you for a minute?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "What do you do here?" I said, "I do stunts." He said, "Oh, you probably doubling me." I said, "Yeah, okay, well, probably, you know." And then he said, "I got a question for you." He said, "I got a scholarship. I forget what the name of the college was." And he said, "I got this acting career." He says, "What do you think I should do? Do you think I should go to college or just follow this acting thing?" I said, "Go to college because you're never going to make it as an actor." That's what I told Forrest Whitaker. So I see him now and we laugh about it. You know, it's a big joke. Every time he sees me, I mean, after winning the Academy Award, we just started laughing. I worked with him on Respect, which was a Aretha Franklin film. I was stunt coordinator on that. And every time I see Rage in Harlem was another one. Every time I see him, he started laughing because we go back to that, decision that he was trying to make. But anyway, I was playing football and I hit this guy by the name of Glenn Randall, and I tackled him really hard and put him in the hospital.
oh,
And then it was a stunt, and that's what we do as stuntmen. And he called me, and he was like, he had done Raiders of the Lost Ark and E.T. So I said, I just put one of the biggest stunt coordinators in the business in the hospital. So I said, my career is over. So he called me, and I was avoiding him. And then my answering service finally said, "Hey, you better take this call because Glenn has been calling you." He called me kid. I was young then. "Hey, kids, you better talk to this man because he's really important in the business." So he called me and said, "Hey, Julius, this is Glenn Randall. I'm calling you from the hospital." And he said, "Hey, I'm doing a movie, and I want you to come and double one of the actors. Don't worry about putting me in the hospital. I played football. I knew what I was getting into. I played football. You did a great job." So that was kind of a relief. So anyway, he called me to go to Yuma, Arizona to work on Star Wars. And getting there, a bunch of the there were English stuntmen there too. And I was one of the first American stuntmen hired on the show. And I was there to double Billy D. Williams. So anyway, I arrived on the set, and at that time they called the movie Blue Harvest. It wasn't called Star Wars. And Glenn couldn't tell me what the show was because it was top secret because of the merchandise, the characters, and they had to deal with Kenner Toys to do the action figures. So anyway, I arrived on the set, and they had a cocktail mixture for everybody to kind of get to know each other and everything. So I said, "This is kind of nice. It's the first time I ever walked into something like that. It was the biggest set I'd been on since Towering Inferno." So anyway, I'm walking around and a little cocktail in my hand, and I said, "God, that guy kind of looks like Harrison Ford,
Yeah.
And then I said, "Well, it kind of looks like Carrie Fisher." Then Mark Hamill. And when I saw Billy D. Williams, I said, "Damn, this is kind of like the same cast on Star Wars, the same people, So I said, can't they think of something else? This is, And then, so anyway, Billy D. Williams, Lady Sings the Blues and all those films. And it was just to see him in person was a really big deal for me. And then later on, I found, but anyway, there was a bunch of English stuntmen walking around on crutches. A lot of them had gotten injured doing the rehearsals. And Glenn Randall, being a stunt coordinator, took me over to the Silex pit. And he said, "Julius, I don't know, a bunch of English stuntmen are getting hurt. Do you think you could fall into this pit?" Now, I was there, and he told me I was there to double Billy D. Williams. So I went from a high of doubling Billy D. Williams to looking at the Silex pit.
Jeez Louise.
But at that time, Glenn didn't know this. I had the world record for high falls. I had broke the world record on a film called Let's Do It Again, doubling Bill Cosby.
Right.
Sidney Poitier was directing.
I've seen that 3 times.
Okay. Well, he didn't know too much about my reputation, but at that time, I was probably the top stuntman in the world, but he didn't know it. So anyway, he asked me about the Silex pit and what I thought about it. I said, "Hey, I could do this thing backwards, forward, blind." I said, "There's nothing difficult about this." He said, "Well, I'm just kind of wondering because, they're saying it's too dangerous." And I said, "Hey, I could do this in my sleep." So I went from doubling Billy D. Williams to playing like 5 different parts in the film. I was Squatu. I was Weequay, the skiff master. I was a biker scout. I was a stormtrooper, and Yacht Doran. So all of those characters I played because of my ability, and I was able to do a bunch of those falls you see in the Silex pit. They were me. English stuntmen, they didn't want to do them. They said it was too dangerous. So it wasn't a big deal. I mean, it was something that. And plus, my pay was based on what he was paying them. So it was more money than I ever thought I would make doing these little bitty high falls. I went from doing 170-foot high falls to maybe 35-foot into the Silex pit, which I welcome that, But that's how I got involved. Glenn Randall brought me in and then discovered that I was more than just a double for Lando. I was able to do all these stunts that really help, kind of pull him out of a jam. So he brought a couple other American stuntmen in, and we did the things that the English didn't want to do,
I got to ask you, in that fall, what's at the end of that when you go down in that hole there?
It was a little facade. It was a kind of a bottom that was kind of camouflaged as the throat of the Silex pit, you know, like it was something that would eat you, but it was just a thin cover over an airbag. So once we went through that, we landed on the airbag, and of course, you know what airbag is. The air escapes
Yeah.
and it catches you. So that was pretty clever. Glenn had it. Glenn had it really set up very well. Everything was really safe. You know, from doing Raiders and ET and all those big movies, he was very careful and very knowledgeable. But at that time, the English stuntmen were trying to get him fired, saying he was too dangerous. You know, they were getting hurt. This is too scary. It's not well thought out. And so I was out to prove something along with Glenn, and we did. We pulled it off. One of the better action sequences of Star Wars, I think.